Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another new edition of Africa Today, where we get you the latest news updates taking place on the African scene. And our main topic today will be the COP22, which is the climate talks taking place in Morocco and starting today. But we'll first have a look at this report on Libya. Libya needs new peace talks. International Crisis Group said that Libya's armed groups must be involved in new peace talks towards ending political division and conflict in the oil-rich country. Details follow.
The International Crisis Group said that Libya's armed groups must be involved in new peace talks towards ending political division and conflict in the oil-rich country. Libya has been mired in chaos since the fall of dictator Muammar al-Qaddafi in 2011. The Brussels-based think tank said a December 2015 UN-backed deal to resolve the country's bitter divisions had reconfigured more than contributed to resolving internal strife. Under the agreement signed in the Moroccan resort of Shikrit, a government of national accord would lead the country for 2 years prior to elections. The GNA was intended to replace two rival administrations in eastern Libya and the capital Tripoli, but it has so far failed to win a vote of confidence from the Eastern Parliament that would give it authority across the country. On the ground, the GNA allied forces have been fighting since May to oust the Daesh group from their coastal bastion of Sirte. In September, forces allied with controversial Field Marshal Khalifa Haftar, who doesn't recognize the GNA, took over 4 key oil ports in the so-called El Crescent east of Sirte. International Crisis Group warned that pro-GNA forces in Sirte may advance on the oil ports, or the Haftar's forces could move west towards Tripoli, sparking further clashes.
Welcome back, and moving on to South Sudan, the World Food Programme warns of severe hunger in South Sudan. The World Food Programme, WFP, says famine may be looming in South Sudan's where citizens are running away from fighting and leaving their crops to rot in agricultural fields. More details in the following report.
The World Food Programme said that famine may be looming in South Sudan, where people are fleeing fighting and leaving their crops to rot in the fields. Malnutrition is already above the 15% emergency level in 7 out of South Sudan's 10 states, and about 30% in 2 of them, Unity and Northern Bahar el-Ghazal. Widespread fighting between forces loyal to President Salva Kiir and to his former deputy, Riek Machar, means people cannot move around to harvest crops or to get to the market. In addition, many roads are impassable anyway during the rainy season, so the WFP is conducting airdrops and air deliveries. Once UNAID convoy of 38 trucks carrying food for 52,000 people for a month did reach the town of Yai. Over 1 million refugees have streamed out of the country, 9/10 of them women and children. Over 4,000 a day are crossing into Uganda, where the BDB refugee settlements, open since August, now host over 188,000 people. Another 300 refugees have reached Ethiopia since early September, while others head for Sudan or Congo. The UNHCR's $251 million South Sudan refugee plan has so far received only $48.5 million US, and in August rations were cut for 200,000 refugees.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and as we mentioned earlier, our main topic today will be the COP22 or climate talks taking place today, that starts today in Morocco with Egypt's participation. We will talk about the significance of Egypt's participation in these talks and the importance of these talks regarding climate change issues that are facing the world and challenges facing global warming. And on this issue, we're delighted to be joined today by Dr. Sayed Sabri Mansour, Senior Consultant of Climate Change and Clean Technologies. Good afternoon, sir, and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be here.
Sir, how do you view the significance of Egypt's participation in the climate talks that starts today in Morocco?
First of all, we have to recognize that this conference is very important this year because it is a conference that will follow up what's happened by Paris Agreement that have been done last year. We know that Egypt is heading the African countries and the African group regarding the climate change talks, and at the same time, because Egypt is also leading the AMSEN, I mean the ministerial conference of the African Ministerial Conference, African Ministerial Delegation for environment. So it was a good role for Egypt in the Paris Agreement and in the conference COP21 and also in this conference COP22. And we know that also Egypt has making the two initiatives regarding for Africa. The first initiative regarding the renewable energy for all Africa, and the second initiative is regarding the adaptation adaptation to climate change for Africa. So we see that also still Egypt is leading the efforts in these climate change talks regarding the African countries, and this in reality it's a responsibility for the time being, and it is done very well.
Right. Well, as you've just mentioned, sir, that the COP22 will be following up on the COP21 that took place last year in Paris. What are the main achievements expected to be achieved in this conference that's going to last for around 10 days in Morocco?
Yes. One of the main achievements is that we found that already the new agreement, the Paris Agreement, have been come into force. Last Friday, in the 4th of November, 2016, it means that within less than 1 year, the agreement have been agreed and it came into force. If we remember, the Kyoto Protocol stayed from 1997 until 2005. 8 years until it came into force. So this is one of the achievements. Means that all the countries agreed to go forward comprehensively, and they start to prepare themselves to implement the agreement. I mean the action and the activities in the agreement. And one of sort of the main issues is that will have been looked. They will, in this conference, they will give more guidance about the NDCs, intended determined, national determined contributions of the countries regarding how they are going to implement the new agreement.
Right.
Also, another issue is about the adaptation issue, how to go further in implementation of the adaptation issue, and also about the finance, how to make the finance of the different activities regarding mitigation and adaptation.
Right. The United Nations said 100 parties and 99 countries, and the European Union had formally joined the accord. How do you see the participation of the different parties in the current talks taking place in Morocco?
I think in these current talks, many of the countries, if not all the countries, are in fact determining to continue to implement this agreement in a good manner and not as pretended as before. I mean, they recognize that it's very, very important to start real actions to combat climate change, because the threats coming from climate change became very, very dangerous and very severe.
Right. Well, negotiators in Morocco will be trying to push ahead on a few key points. However, looking at immediate actions that could be taken to cut emissions, which is one of the main targets.
Yeah.
How do you think this could be achievable immediately or quickly or as soon as possible?
Immediate cutting of the emissions is very, very important, because, as I mentioned, the threats coming from the climate change are very dangerous. So one of the main actions that should be done immediately is cutting or making cuts of the emissions, in particular for the developed countries, to values ambitious or ambitious than the normal values of cutting of the emissions before.
Right. Actually, the Morocco meeting is set to start writing a detailed rule book to follow up on the Paris Agreement. What were the main recommendations of the Paris Agreement that took place?
In Paris Agreement, there were the main. It didn't go to the very details. It gives the principal issues regarding the mitigation and the adaptation and the finance and the technology transfer and all issues like that. But in this conference, there will be, as mentioned, the rule book. I mean, how to implement all these issues, starting by giving more guidance about the nationally determined contributions and for each country, and how it could be controlled and how it could be MRV, I mean measured, reported, verified. All these details will be discussed in this conference in order to come to a rule book, or how it means some details regarding the guidelines and procedures for implementation of these issues. Like in the past, when the Kyoto Protocol was issued and was ratified, and then came after that by more details in Marrakesh Accord.
Right. The number of nations that have ratified the 2015 Paris Agreement to curb global warming by shifting from fossil fuels has risen to 100 in recent days. How do you see this, or how do you read this, including Saudi Arabia?
I think that in the COP21 in Paris, there was a good faith of all the countries that have participated in this conference, and that's why they came after, of course, after hard negotiations, to the agreement on this Paris Agreement. And in such case, I think, according to this good faith, most of the countries started to prepare itself to the next step. I mean, the implementation of this agreement. Each country have submitted what's called nationally determined contributions. I mean, it's plan of the country on how to combat climate change regarding the mitigations and regarding the adaptation. Both, because many of the countries, their plans contain the two issues, and in many cases, some of the actions can benefit in mitigation and adaptation in the same time.
Right. According to scientists, the Earth will heat up about 3 degrees Celsius, which is around 5.4 degrees Fahrenheit. above the pre-industrial era benchmark, a sure recipe for a climate catastrophe. How do you see this? What are your expectations?
These are the expectations of the scientists. I think what have been done and approved in the Paris Agreement that we should not exceed 200 degrees to 2 degrees Celsius, okay? To avoid the catastrophic impacts of climate change. And it will be better if we can decrease this to 1.5 degree as an ambitious. This is an ambitious target to reach 1.5 degree instead of 2 degrees. But if the temperature increase is more than 2 degrees, the impacts will be worse. That can the humankind they can withstand. But 3 degree have, of course, more severe. Yes, but not like 4 degrees or 5 degrees or 6 degrees, because some of the scientists expect to reach even more than 3 degrees. If the international efforts can reach the cut of the emissions to reasonable values as mentioned by the science, in such case, we hope that the increase of temperature couldn't exceed the 2 degrees.
What are the expected actions to be taken by the countries to help reduce the Earth heat?
Of course, there are many actions that can be taken by the countries. It depends on each country, starting from using, of course, reducing the fossil fuel consumption, because it is the major source of emissions. Also, land use change and forestry. I mean, also management, the good management of the forests, and of course, in other issues regarding the carbon capture and storage, these new technologies to capture the CO2 from the major sources of the emissions and storing it underground in geographical formations. So there are many issues, of course, among these in the industry using the clean technologies and low carbon technologies. We call it all these types low carbon technologies, I mean with less emissions of carbon dioxide than the previous one.
Right. Sir, how do you see the efforts done by the Egyptian government to cope with the climate change and global warming?
The Egyptian government has taken many steps. Of course, I think there are more that can be done. But since a long time, Egypt have started some programs. And of course, in using the natural gas instead of the petrol, the oil, in the electricity generation, in the industry, and also in the transportation.
Right.
You know, like the white taxi and the others. In addition to that, the introduction of the renewable energy, because it is a clean energy, right. Solar energy, wind energy, to partially replace the energy generated by fossil fuel. In addition to that, of course, promoting the green initiatives regarding greening the economy in different sectors. For example, replacing part of the pumps, water pumping in the irrigation, and rehabilitation by electric pumps, and also rehabilitation of the old pumps that give high emissions.
Right, Dr. El-Sayed Sabri Mansour, consultant for climate change and clean technologies. Many thanks for joining us, and many thanks for your insights.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here. Thank
Dear
you.
viewers, with this we wrap up this edition of Africa Today. Many thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more coming up here on Nile TV International.